heavy rail is not cheap to do. It's an expensive form of transport, but it's also growing in popularity. They've got 85 million journeys made across Scotland last year, so people want to use the rail link when it's there. We've done quite a lot, in my view, in terms of extending rail links, whether it's Stirling, Allow, Kincardine, Airdrie, Bathgate. And as I say, we're seeing people coming back to the railways. And as you said as well, in the Borders itself, it puts you on a map you were not on before, which is the rail map of Scotland and indeed the UK. And I think that's very important for people looking to make a day trip somewhere, people thinking about where they might locate and then access jobs, perhaps even in Edinburgh. So this is a tremendous event, a tremendous project for the Borders generally.
People were certainly mobile in the 60s, but people far more mobile now in terms of commuting. The number of people commuting 30, 35, 40 miles to work would be very small in comparison in the 60s to what it is today. So I suppose the expected passengers and the reasons for travelling will be somewhat different to days gone by.
Well, you're right, commuting. Many people will find it much more convenient to commute by train. Very reasonable ticket prices rather, for the journey as well. So that'll make it attractive for people to commute. But in addition to that, people get the idea, I'll go down to the Borders, have a look. I can get a train from most other parts of Scotland now and go down for a part of the country perhaps you haven't been down to see before. So it's going to be a benefit to indigenous businesses in the Borders, and of course having attractions like the Great Tapestry of Scotland, I think it's a tremendous thing. So there's a two-way benefit. But you're right about the commuting element, and also that gives people access to sometimes higher paid jobs here in Edinburgh and throughout the Central Belt. So a great step forward for the Borders.
If it was to reach the stage in terms of its popularity where you needed to look at expansion, would there be troublesome areas with bridges that would require a certain amount of work in order to allow for additional volume?
It's always the case if you try to expand the capacity of a railway. We're looking at it in different parts of the country just now, then it's going to cost money, there's no doubt about that. But what we've done with the Borders project is estimated as best we can what we think the likely patronage will be, what the usage will be, what the capacity is, and what budget we have. You have to work within those constraints. But yes, of course, if you want to expand any rail line, then you're going to have to pay to do that. And sometimes, not talking about the Borders just now, but other ones you can see you've got to raise a bridge. Sometimes you have to do that for electrification purposes as well. So yes, you have to take those things into account if you want to expand the line.
I know there's a great deal of excitement and interest and intrigue in the Borders looking ahead to that first week in September. It's going to be a very busy time for people in the Borders, and interestingly, you know, for a lot of people this is the first time they've been to Waverley to see where trains will depart from.
Yeah. I think you're right, that's a week-long celebration really for the opening. We're drawing up the plans for that just now, in fact we have been for some time. We want to make sure that everyone hears about this. Not least because many people have put a lot of effort into making sure this link comes, but also because we want to tell the world about it, so they themselves think about using this. There is a coterie of people that are very interested in railways just for their own sake, who go to every new opening, and we want them to be there, but we want to have as many other people realising this is a new part of the country, perhaps they haven't thought about going to in the past, but they can now access not just by rail but by steam train on many occasions. So we want to make as much as we can of that week-long opening week, if you like, to make sure people are aware of what's on offer.
This was Stuart in his early days learning to drive a train. Back then he was understandably like a kid in a candy shop. Not every day you get to live your dream, and as the big launch day approaches, we met up again and I wanted to know, well, the obvious.
Such a beautiful line, I must say that. It's a real pleasure to be driving it. It's a great line, the views are fantastic. It's a real pleasure to be driving up and down this route now.
Do you actually have time to look at the views?
During our training, not so much. You're focused on all sort of curvatures of the line and the speeds and things like that. But when you do get the chance to have a look elsewhere, it's magnificent, it really is.
Is it anything like you imagined it to be?
I'd have to say no. It's far more superior than what I thought it would be. As you say, driving up and down the A7, you're getting stuck behind things. It's a twisty, windy road. This just takes all the pressure off getting the train and using the Borders line.
So what's been the best part of it so far? I mean, is it the thrill of going through the Beauchamp Tunnel or Falla Hill or over the Harden Green Bridge or the Lothian Bridge Viaduct? There's so many iconic features on the route.
I would have to say all of it. All of it's great. Climbing up over Falla is a really steep climb. But once you get over the other side, I mean, some of the views are just fantastic, as I said before. It's a real great line to drive, and I can only think that it would be great to be a passenger on this line as well.
And of course the big event, September the 6th is the first passenger service. Have you had the rota yet?
No. We'll wait and see what happens with that one. It might be a case that whoever's booked to drive that train, I'd like to be the first one to do it, to take the first passenger service, but it's not in my hands, unfortunately.
So we're at Tweedbank Station at the moment. You've just driven down from Edinburgh Waverley. You're going to be going back up there in a few minutes' time as well. What's your feeling?
It's just pride. It really is just pride to be driving this line. As I said, 40 years it's been closed for. To be one of the drivers selected to drive this route is just an absolute privilege.
And we mentioned about ambition as well in the earlier interview, and this is still, absolutely living the dream, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. I couldn't be more happy and more proud to be a train driver on this line. It's just an absolute honour to be driving it, and I hope to be doing it for many years to come.
Now, of course, you only had a couple of days ahead of the drivers because you had to obviously learn the route yourselves as well. How difficult was that?
It was quite difficult, but I'd done a lot of preparation work before, looking at route maps and things like that, so I had an idea of all junction names, station names, where they were about on the route, so it wasn't too bad.
Any specific challenges for this route?
I don't think so. It's quite a nice route to drive. The speed changes quite a lot. Going up to Falla Hill, just before the top of it, you're 85, and then you're 65 from Falla Hill coming back down again.
Anybody not tempted yet to use the train to travel? Well, there's no better ambassador than Stuart Farrell.
It's going to be great. Once this line opens on the 6th of September and people are hopefully going to flock and use this line, it's a brilliant line. Get out there, use it. It's there to be used. Try and get the councillors behind them to try and get it to go further afield. I think that would be the overall aim, but if you don't use it, that's not going to happen.
Had a lot of positive feedback from members of the public who obviously appreciate all the time and effort and expense that have actually gone into sort of creating this cutting edge facility. Everything's in place, a bit of final planning sort of going on, but we're sort of well on our sort of way with it. I think actually the sort of biggest test was actually buses, and that has, as I said, run surprisingly well, so I'm sure the sort of railway experience will actually be of a very similar level.
Well, you have 1,200 yards here, and there was a study done 4 or 5 years ago, I think, and I think today's prices we're talking about 2 million to reinstate it. Some people suggest the best idea is to take the top off, and then you've just got a cutting, and then you don't have all the business of looking after it and maintaining it and so on. But you know, we'll see what the powers that be say when the time comes.